Hi, I'm Kent. I'm giving in to the bubbles. In my last couple of videos, I've been fighting trying to get bubbles out of my plaster. In a twist of fate, I'm actually going to embrace bubbles in this video. I've seen going around recently a glaze application that uses bubbles. So instead of trying to get bubbles out of my plaster, this time I'm going to be trying to get bubbles into my glaze. From what I understand, the basic idea is to mix glaze with a little bit of extra water so it's a little bit more runny, and then add some soap into it so it forms bubbles with films of glaze. Those bubbles then get applied to the outside of the pot. When the bubble pops, it then creates a cool ring effect on the pot. So I have a bunch of my glazes out, and I've got a bunch of pots, so let's try it out. So I went ahead and put a base glaze on all my pots so they won't be unglazed. This is just my clear base underglaze. And then hanging off to the side here, I've got a bunch of my oxide glazes. This is the same base glaze with different percentages of different oxides added in. This one, for instance, is 1% cobalt, so it'll fire blue. I'm guessing this is gonna be a little bit messy, so I'll do it on top of my tray. And I don't think I need much glaze. I've seen ratios like 2 parts glaze to 1 part water. I'll go ahead and start there. My glaze is already mixed up, so I'm gonna go ahead and measure some out. All right, there's a little bit of glaze. Let me go ahead and add some water to this. All right, there's a little bit of water. Went and grabbed some straws, so I'll go ahead and mix this up. And then I think just take a couple drops of dish soap. All right, definitely starting to get some bubbles. So I've seen people blow into straws to get this. I'm going to cheat and use my air compressor. I don't have much air in the tank. It's cranked way down, so I'm just going to use that and blow. Oh yeah. I think I'm going to set this on its side so the bubbles can just overflow onto the side. I think I need some more glaze. And some more water. Dab the bubbles on, I guess. Definitely feels like painting with bubbles. Lots of tiny bubbles. All right, there we go. Once around on that one. See some of the bubble effects there. All right, we'll set this inside to dry and do again. Let's move over to the next color. I have a rutile glaze I'll do next. Next I'll do some manganese. And finally I'm going to do some copper. Doing about a 1-to-1 ratio. It seems to work better. And lots of soap. In general, I like glazes that are pretty random. This one definitely is random, at least at this point. I'm going to go back a second round on a few of these pots and add a second color. Let these dry out. All the bubbles should pop by then, and we can put it into the next glaze firing. I had a successful glaze firing. Let's check out the results. First up are a couple of surprises. There are a few of my pots that looked like the bubbles completely disappeared. So here's one, and here's another one, and here's a third. This one has a slight hint of green on it, so I'm pretty sure this is the one I glazed with the copper. It became this very diffuse green. You barely see a difference relative to just the clear glaze. It probably isn't coming up all that well on camera. First I thought the bubbles just completely disappeared. However, upon looking at these much more closely, there is a faint hint of the bubbles. Let's see if I can get a shot where you can see it. So there we go. You can barely see. There's these little fine outlines of where the bubbles were, but you really have to be looking to see them. I think what's going on is there's probably just too little oxides in the bubbles that I deposited so that it just diffused out. So that was one interesting lesson. Maybe a commercial glaze that has a stronger pigment might work a little bit better. So we can put those aside. Here's another one that I thought fired out, and I don't really see much color. There's maybe a little bit of cobalt that got on it. However, this one has something else going on. The bottom here, the bubbles went past where I put the clear glaze on the pot. So they're just the spot where there's the bubbles, and there's a little bit of interesting texture here. So right there you can see it better. This fine little texture of all the little bubbles. It's a little bit rough. I'm not too sure I would like that on a finished pot, but it is definitely an interesting effect and might be worth exploring some more. Next up is another pot that obviously had the copper on it. Here, again, the copper just kind of diffused over the surface. There isn't much of an effect otherwise. And these last three pots obviously all had the cobalt on them. So I think this one actually worked the best. You can see all this fine bubble structure on it. There's some spots where it got thicker and colored the underlying pot a little bit more. And this one is where I put some copper bubbles on top, and I don't see the bubble structure from the copper. I think it just kind of diffused similar to the other pot and just made it a little bit green. And you could see a few of the runs that happened. This one was definitely successful. Another one with the cobalt, there's a few spots where the bubbles were good. This one had some more runs, and I had an accident and kind of got the whole side in cobalt here. And again, I think this one turned out pretty well. We can see like there's these more diffuse bubbles in here versus much more pronounced ones going all the way around. And I guess when the bubbles get too thick, or maybe they pop and they smear around, is when I get this more diffuse color. And there's some sides with very few bubbles. Some sides very dense. That was a fun experiment. I'm sure there are probably better ways to create the bubbles and apply them to the pots, maybe a little less chaotic way. That is potentially something to explore a little bit more in the future. However, after fighting bubbles for several weeks now, it actually was fun to kind of go and embrace them. So this was a fun technique to try. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Thanks.